All right, we're getting close, boys. We're on to pretty much the last thing to assemble here. We got the wheels left to do, so only, what, another 600 pieces, and we'll be pretty much done. Yeah, and I counted all those spokes. So there's 288 spokes for all the wheels in total. I didn't count them. It's written on the instructions. Yeah, so let's get into getting these wheels done and getting this project finished off. So, yeah. All right, so here is the instructions. So they're outlining, there's not really much to this step, right? You just say you get jigs, a couple jigs, one for the front, one for the rear. That's what these two here are. Because the wheels are different depths, so that's good. And theoretically, you could build two wheels at once or have two on a jig at once. They only give you one of this sort of top plate that holds it all together, but it's just a washer, so I'm sure I can find a washer that I can use in another bolt. So I'll get two set up, front and rear, and do them at the same time. But anyways, yeah, there's just a whole bunch of holes I got to drill in the hubs. I'll get the hubs cleaned up. I'll get them drilled out. Might throw them in the lathe to clean them up, just to put a nice surface finish on them. I'm gonna paint them, like I'll paint them a bright silver so they kind of look like polished aluminum to match the wheel, the rim. But that's about it for painting. It'll just be the hub itself. And the spinners, of course, they will be polished. So I'll work them and I'll polish them when we get to that part. And then the valve stems. So everything's there. Tires look beautiful. So let's get this all cleaned off the bench. I'll get set up with the drill press or whatever, and I'll just show you how I'm going to drill out the 5 million holes on that. So, and the trick with this is I don't probably want to drill all these holes all the way through, because I don't want the spokes, especially on the inside of the hub here, I don't want them sticking through, because that will cause mounting issues. They need to be flush. But part of the way you build these things is you stick this piece of silicone hose in here, and then this top piece will go on top, bolt it all through and onto the assembly jig. But the main benefit, or the reason you use the silicone hose, is so you can glue the spokes in place and they won't go in too far, and also the super glue won't, or the CA glue won't stick to the silicone hose. So clever. At least that's what it looks like in theory. We'll see how it works out. I don't anticipate them being that hard. It looks pretty straightforward. They sort of give you the step by step to put the spokes in, which ones you do. Like, looks like, your first row is every second spoke. You just work your way around the wheel rim. Index is in the hub, or in the jig, and the hub index is in the jig as well, so all your holes are in proper alignment. And then it's just a matter of working up the hub and up the wheel with your different layers. It looks like the base, you start with 2 layers there, and then the next layer and another layer. 6 layers in total, I think. Yeah, 4, 5, 6 layers of spokes in total. But it's just working around, and you just keep working around to get them all in. They give you nice little ferrules for the spoke nipples, so they should be fairly easy. They're nice and big, and they're quite long, so they should be fairly easy to get in there. And the spokes are longer than they need to be, so that should make it quite easy, really. And they say not to bend the spokes, so you just sort of drill the little pilot straight on the hub, and you can just, it'll just naturally hold it there. So hopefully it all works out. We will find out shortly. So anyways, like I say, let me get this all cleared up, get out my little drill press, figure out how I'm going to hold these. That's easy to, you know, get perpendicular to each hole, turn it, and drill them in the most efficient manner. And yeah, I'll show you a little bit about of that, get them cleaned up, get the, you know, hubs obviously first, like I say, and then we'll figure out this jig thing and show you how I do it. So anyways, that's where we are with this, and we're getting really close. And I say that because you haven't seen any of the body work being done, but I have been doing all the body work, you know, throughout the whole project, right? Like we saw prepping the body in the beginning, but I have actually been working on it. I'll just present it all in its step, in its order, but I do actually work on it throughout the process, because, you know, you paint, you got to let that dry, or you do some body work, filler, whatever, you got to let all that dry. So I've got the final clear coat on it. I've already wet sanded this once and then gone and put more clear coat on, and now that's, I just sprayed this yesterday, so that'll dry. I figure I'll probably just working on this here and there in the evenings, couple 3-4 days on these wheels, maybe not even that long. This clear coat will be ready to do its final wet sanding and polish, and then it'll be final assembly. So, you know, in real time, I probably only have a week or two left on this build. So anyways, that's where we're at. Little sneak peek of the Streamliner. You know, it's not looking too bad. That's just out of the gun right now. It's fairly decent. It's got I got a little bit of junk. It's been super cold here, and subsequently super low humidity. It's like 15% humidity right now, so there's a lot of static in the air, so it was hard to keep. I get a little bit more dust than I normally get in my paint. So anyways, I digress. That is a story for the next episode, actually. So anyways, let's get on with the wheel, and we'll see you in a bit with the hubs. Got everything all set up. Just made a little fixture to hold the hubs. Just basically a piece of rod that the hub fits over pretty snugly. And yeah, just have it set up in my little mini drill press here. Just to help, I've already drilled out a couple of the hubs. It's working out okay. I thought I'd just throw the camera on and show you just basically what I figured out here, and hopefully get that in shot here. My fingers are going to kind of get in the way, but I'll try to drill a few out on camera and the thing I find with white metal is it tends to clog up drill bits pretty easily, so gotta kind of stop and clean them out. It's pretty gummy metal by nature, and this probably isn't the best drill bit. This is just a high-speed steel. I don't know what brand these ones are. Might be Excel. They're kind of cheap. I don't necessarily use my really good drill bits for this. These ones are nice because they're, like I say, distinct or high-speed steel, so they're quite flexible. So if you get it a bit out of alignment, you don't break them. That's kind of also why I didn't make, or go with a fixture that would hold this fairly rigidly. So it's kind of self-centering because it can float around on this shaft backwards and forwards and around. So it just sort of finds the hole on the dimple, aligns itself, makes it a bit easier. Yeah, so that's all there is to it. Just keep going around, drill all these out, do the bottom ones, and just have one more to do, and then I will clean them up on the lathe. Not that I'll cut it with like a cutting bit on the lathe, but here's, let's see if that, get this in focus. I had this little mandrel jig, whatever, that I'd made for something else that happens to fit these quite well. So I'll just use that, throw it in the lathe, and just use some fine sandpaper to clean up the surface and everything, get it ready for paint. So that's the plan. I will go ahead and finish this off, and I will see after I get these hubs all done and painted, and I'll start building the wheels. Alright, so I got 2 of the wheels done, as you can see here. They turned out pretty good. They weren't too bad to build. They were, I wouldn't say fiddly. It's just a lot of repetitive, time-consuming work is what it is. So the instructions are pretty good. The jig works well. So really, they're once you sort of figure out where you start, that's the main thing, and that's true for lacing real wheels or these. It's very very similar, and that's the key, is figuring out where to start. So obviously you start at the beginning, but the way the jigs work, let's just put the 2 finished wheels away. Where the wheel sits on the jig here, we can probably see. Use this as a pointer. We have the sorry, I gotta get the different glasses on. We got a little notch here for the indent here is for the where the valve stem goes, and there's also 2 little locating notches for this screw, and this screw will kind of click in there to index the rim properly. And there's a line here inside the jig. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can see it. There's a line that goes right through, so that sets the orientation of the wheel correctly, so all the spoke holes will be oriented properly. The hub is also indexed on there. It can only go on go on 2 ways, 180 degrees apart, but it's symmetrical. from that perspective. So it can only go on one way. So that indexes all those holes. So then you just got to, let me just get the instructions out. Then you just have to pay attention on where your first spoke goes. So, you know, whichever layer you're doing, there's 6 layers in total, right? And luckily they give you sort of this perspective view and then a orthographic view, a top-down view. So, you know, you figure out where the first spoke goes. I always start with the spoke, you know, it's going to be the closest to your index point, which is the valve stem hole. So the very first layer, it's, you know, the one to the right, and then we can look at the orthographic view, the top-down view, and we can find that spoke here. And let's just zoom in a little bit further. And you can see where it goes on the hub, right? So it's not quite perpendicular to the center line, it's just a little bit off. So then you figure out, and obviously this is going, you can tell looking over here, it's going to the bottom row holes around the hub. So you just find that hole on the hub, which this is going to be real, I doubt you can see this. But you just find that hole, and that gives you the first spoke. Once you get the first spoke in for that layer of spokes, then it's just a matter of going around. The first layer here is easy because it's just every second hole along the bottom holes on the rim. The top one, you start going every 4th hole, but that pattern just repeats, right? And then you just start filling it in. So that's the most critical thing when you're lacing these types, or wheels like this, spoked wheels, is getting your first spoke set properly in the right orientation, and then everything else just follows that exact same pattern. So it's really easy. It's a little fiddly, but actually it's not that bad because the spokes they give you are longer than they need to be, which is good and it's bad. So, you know, they're plenty long enough. They stick out. I'll start assembling this one here, but they stick out quite a bit when you're done. So you got a lot to hold on to on the end and manipulate and get it all lined up. Because we drilled all the holes perpendicular, they don't just slide into the hub. They just sort of go into the hole at a bit of an angle and jam there. So I'll show you what I do. You just got to more or less just jam it into the hole, but not through the hole, if that makes sense. It's going in an angle, but it doesn't have to go into the hub. It just has to be tight into the hole, and sort of it'll hold it there. And the way spokes work, it'll hold the hub, so it's fine. Yeah, so that's good. It makes it really easy to get the spokes set. It makes it really easy because they're too long. It makes it really easy to put the nipples on, or the ferrules. These are actually ferrules because they're not really a nipple, but that's what they represent. Anyway, so it makes it easy to get those on, get everything set and glued. Where it's a pain in the butt is you got to trim them all, which sounds easy enough, and it is easy enough, except that these are not soft. It's hard wire. I don't know what it is, music wire or something, but it's quite hard. So you need some good cutters to cut hard wire, otherwise you'll just ruin whatever you're using. So I only have, you know, a big pair of diagonal cutters that will cut these things, and they won't get in there and cut them flush. That's the problem with this, which shouldn't be too big of a deal, as you can see. Right? The spokes are sticking out a bit. I can't get them quite flush. Which the tire's hollow there, so that's not really a big deal. It'll go over that, but I don't know if I want to try stretching the tire over them. It might scratch up the tire as I'm trying to put it on, so we'll see. The only way I can trim them from here is either with the grinder or buy some flush cut nippers that will do hard wire, which are not cheap. You know, you can get them, obviously, but they're not typically cheap. That's for sure. Probably $100 for a pair of good side cutters that will cut this stuff. So that's unfortunate. You know, I'm not going to bother now. I've already got 2 of them built. If I was to do it again, maybe I'd replace all this with nickel silver, because it's a little bit easier to cut and work with. But it bends easier. These don't bend. They're quite springy, so they must be music wire. So, and when you're sticking them in the hole on the hub, you know, I'm grabbing them with my little tiny forceps here, or hemostats, or whatever these are, and these won't mark it up, which is great. So that's nice that they're nice and hard. They won't mar. They got a lot of spring to them, so if I twist them and sort of try to jam it in there, they won't bend and leave a kink in it or anything like that. So from that perspective, they're great. It's just trimming them and cleaning up at the end, which is a bit of a pain as a result. So anyways, that is where I'm at with those. I got 1 front and 1 rear built. Like I say, they give you the 2 jig bottoms. They only give you enough hardware, I guess, to do 1 at a time. Like, they give you a top washer here. You can see here I've got a different washer, this orange one, which are just some shims for radio controlled cars that I had, and same with some metric hardware here that I had, some cap head screws, which they tell you, they give you 1 2mm bolt. These are 2.5, which I found actually work better. It fits that. They give you the silicone tube here. I don't know if you can see that on the instructions. They give you the silicone tube, and it's actually 2.5mm ID. So this actually worked better. So I just drilled the hole out, tapped it for 2.5mm. So that's all I've done there. So I can do them both at the same time, which works out well, because that was the other thing I was going to talk about. Because you got to cut these. You know, I just go through and I super glue it all. You know, I just a little touch on the hub, and then I glue the ferrule and the spoke to the rim, which is fine, and it probably would be good enough until you go to trim them. You know, it's because they're hard steel or hard wire. It takes quite a bit of force to trim them, and when I tried trimming them when they were just super glued in there, and it would break the super glue loose, and so the spokes would come loose. So obviously that's no good. So what I did was I epoxied them in afterwards. So I'd do the first layer, or do 1 layer. They'd all be I'd super glue it as I go, and then I'd come back when that layer's all done and just dab epoxy around, let that set up, and then I'd come back and trim them. So I'd do them 1 layer at a time. So it's good that I could do 2 at a time, because I can do the bottom layer on each one, or whatever layer, let them sit, and it just gives you something to do. And by the time I do 2, you know, a layer on each wheel, I'm ready for a break. I find this kind of work monotonous, and because it's repetitious, right? There's 6 layers of spokes, 12 spokes per wheel, so it's a lot of the same thing over and over and over again. That doesn't really hold my interest. So anyways, I'm ready for a break by the time I've got 1 layer on each wheel done. So I get the epoxy on, let it set, and then I can come back and trim them, and they don't break loose, so that's good. So anyways, I'll just maybe I will zoom back out a little bit here and just demo a bit of just my process. So, you know, the tools I use, obviously a glue looper. Well, maybe not obviously. I use a little glue looper for my CA glue. This is, Mr. Hobby's got 2 different ones that look very similar. One's blue with a yellow label, and the other one's yellow with a blue label. And This one here with the blue, the dark blue, it's a strong type that sets a little bit slower, and then they have another one. The one that's opposite is quick setting. So I use this one. It works pretty good. It's fairly thin. So I use that. The looper, I got some wide tip pliers. You can see those seem to work really good for picking up and holding on to the ferrules. And then I use these little guys that they lock. I don't usually lock them, but if I need to, you can lock them. But they got little teeth on them, so they grip, especially when you're dealing with round things. They work really good for that. So like I say, setting the first spoke is the most important thing. So I already know that this one starts the hole just to the right of the center. You can see inside the hub. You probably definitely not going to be able to see that, but I get it set into the hole in the hub. And I'm going to try to do this. I'll get my head in the shot here because I got to get pretty close. I just grab the spoke and I give it a bit of a wiggle and get it into the hole. And so it is set. A little bit of glue. I just put a touch of glue there. I usually wipe a little bit of glue on the spoke. Just wipe it on the exposed part of the shaft. That just, as you put the ferrule on it, sort of drags the glue inside the ferrule and glues it to the spoke. Get it on there. Push it down. I use my tweezers to just get it flush. That's the other thing, they don't really give you any direction on how far in to put the ferrules. And there's no positive stop, like they'll just go right through. So I've just lined them up, and I just do them all the same. I just, like these outside ones, I just line up so the bottom of it's flush with the outside of the rim. And they look good. They look fine. So, and then I just come along and put some glue in the hole. Like I say, this will just hold them while I'm building it, and then I'll come back and epoxy them all. So that's one of, what do we got left to do? 144 more spokes to do. And then it's just a repeating pattern, right? So it's just every second hole on the rim. It's every hole on the bottom layer on the hub. All wheels will be different, but that's the pattern on these ones. Try not to drop your tools. But yeah, that's it. Pretty straightforward, and just it'll work around. I think there's 12 spokes, like I say, per layer. And then the next layer, getting the next layer started, this one actually goes up a level in the wheel and then up one level on the hub. You just work your way around, and that's where the pattern starts to form. So one thing that was interesting on this wheel, like typically, I don't know, like if you ever look at a spoked wheel, usually two patterns that are used. There'll be across one or across two. So if we look here at this bottom layer, you'll see that each spoke crosses another spoke once. So that's a single cross, and it's right up near the hub. Sometimes it'll be down farther, and that depends on how far apart the spoke holes are on the hub will determine where they cross. But that's across there's a technical word for it. I can't remember what it is, but it crosses once. So one spoke crosses one other spoke. So that's the first level. Second level, same thing. You can see these ones, they cross a little bit farther down because the hub part, the holes are farther apart now. So they cross a little bit farther down, which starts to create a pattern, but they still only, one spoke only crosses one other spoke. Then the third level, it's 2 spokes cross. So the pattern shifts. So that's where you just got to be careful on lining up the first spoke of the second layer within that pattern, just to make sure. And that's just an easy way to verify that you've got the right holes, right? You'll see that, you know, working on these top ones, they did them both blue on this. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully it's not really in the middle. But you can see it comes, the 2 spokes that are on sort of the opposite sides of this hole here crosses the one spoke, and then it crosses another spoke, and then it's into the hub. So, and they're all like that. So that's a good way to verify that you got the pattern right, and you're starting at the right hole. Is you'll get that cross 2 spokes. So, and then you can see that hopefully on here. It's kind of hard to see because these are so shiny, but you should be able to see that the top spokes cross 2 other spokes that are the same sort of pattern, or the same layer. So anyways, that is that. And that's it. They're solid too. It's you know, works just like, you know, it would work for a real spoked wheel. It, you know, one spoke by itself on a hub and the thing's flopping all over the place, but you start getting multiple spokes in there, and that's what gives it its rigidity. So pretty cool. So I'm going to carry on building these. I don't think that it's too exciting to sit and watch me do them. I'll probably see if I can get a tire fit without trimming them anymore. If I do, then I might need to order up some nice pliers, which I don't really want to do. But yeah, that's about as hard as it gets. It's really not that bad. So anyways, I will see you on the next check-in. All right, we're on the home stretch. I've got just about all the spokes in, just the last layer to go. Just thought I'd throw the camera on and, you know, to show me finishing this up. I can tell you that building these is an exercise in perseverance. It's not difficult, but it's tedious getting these built. But you know, you just keep at it, and the parts count slowly reduces. So just gotta keep at it. I don't know, I've spent, I don't know, 3 days working on these. Like, I find each sort of layer takes about 10 minutes, you know, to get the 12 spokes installed. So there's 6 layers per wheel, so that's an hour a wheel, 4 hours total, you know, plus some extra time preparing everything and so forth. So probably, all said and done, 6 hours to build the wheels from start to finish. Which, in the grand scheme of things, is not, that bad. But it's just a lot of doing the same thing over and over again. So, it's got to break it up in chunks. Like, I pretty much built these 2 wheels, one, the second 2, almost all of it yesterday. And, just finishing this up this morning. So obviously, I've developed the muscle memory and the technique pretty good now, so it goes fairly quickly. So anyways, I ran to the hobby shop yesterday and I found they had some nice little bullnose cutters. Now these aren't for hardwire, but they seem to be working, and they cut a little bit flusher than my big ones. So I picked these up. They're cheap. I think these are XL brand. They're like $15. So, and they're working. They're cutting okay. Like it is marring the jaws. I don't know if you can see that already, but they'll get the job done. They're not going to last forever. You could probably do a couple sets of wheels with them, and then they'd be garbage. But yeah, for $15, whatever. So that worked out well. So I went back and trimmed everything so that it shouldn't present too much of a problem getting the tires on. So that's where we're at. Just a quick check-in. I will finish these off, and one more check-in to show you the finished product with the wheels or the tires mounted on. That'll be the next thing I do, which not really much there. There's a bit of a poor stub on the wheels, so you got to clean up, and a little tiny bit of casting flash, so a little bit of prep needed on the wheels, but not much. I doubt I'll show any of that. It's pretty straightforward. If there's anything worth showing, I'll throw the camera on. Otherwise, we'll just do a final check-in with the final results. So we'll see you in a little bit. All right, just a quick check-in, recap of what we've done. We've got, as you can see, I've got the wheels all done, got the tires installed. It wasn't much to show with the tires themselves. There was a seam along the sort of the back edge of the tire and a pour block. I don't know if we can, I think it was right there. So it, the pour block creates a little bit of a, deformation in the tread. Or it can. They weren't too bad on these at all. There was a slight little bit of a seam, bit of flash here, so a bit of 400 grit sanding paper. I just scuffed the whole tread up and made sure I got rid of the mold line, and it cleaned up just fine. Like I say, a little bit of a mark left by the pour block, but just when I install these, I'll just make sure that is down, or at least not in a visible spot. These ones, it's open wheel, so really you want to make sure you install it so the pour block is down. So other than that, though, the tires, they're flexible enough. They went on over top of the wheels with a little bit of the spoke sticking out, no problem. The wheels turned out quite nice. I still have the valve stems to go in them. I'm undecided. They give you some white metal ones. Here you have 4 of them, which are nice. They're a little oval shaped though. So I have the Top Studio machined ones. I might just put those ones on instead. These ones are bigger, but I think the Top Studio ones are more accurate. So I'll probably just throw those on. They're less work as well. So yeah, that is the wheels done. And the tires, obviously. So the next step that we're going to get into is more or less just finishing everything off. Finishing off, getting the body mounted. Obviously we finished that. Actually, I'm not quite sure. Yes, we've already polished the body, I'm pretty sure. In the last episode, I didn't mount anything though. So I wanted to have the wheels built. I pretty much wanted to get all the sub-assemblies done. So the wheels are the last one of that. I still have a bit of work to do for finishing the body, like all the little fasteners and the windshield. So we'll do that all in the next episode. Get it all assembled, and that's it. That'll be it. That'll be the end of it. So just a couple little parts to finish off and put it together, and we are done. So I'm excited to get this wrapped up and then on to the next project. So we will see you in the next episode, and I thank you for watching, and take care. Bye-bye.